Albion. In a long time before man first discovered the secret of fire, millennia before the first elf learned the art of the bow, a race known only as the Old Ones forged the world. Legends tell of how they manipulated the ebb and flow of magic to mould their land to their will, and how they sowed the seeds that would form into the vast forests that cover the world. The races of elves, dwarves, and men were like children to them, whom they nurtured and taught. It is said that even the great dragons were mere playthings to these godlike beings. In time, the Old Ones chose the island of Albion as one of the locations to build their homes. Little is known of their settlements, for a few ever visited Albion, let alone returned from this mysterious place. They forged an island paradise where the sun shone bright and the crops flourished. Gathering together the wisest and bravest individuals of each race, they taught them magic and other skills. They demonstrated the secret of forging runes to the dwarves, and to the elves they taught the mastery of spellcasting. The Old Ones believed that the race they called man was too primitive to learn, but they were quickly surprised at the speed mankind adapted to its surroundings. They were so impressed that they chose to teach a select few of the cave-dwelling tribesmen some of their secrets. Those they taught went by the name of truth-sayers, for it was the duty to teach the other tribesmen the truth path to enlightenment fell upon. They instructed their students to spread across the world and populate the continents, whilst all the time the Old Ones kept a watchful eye over their subjects. They, in turn, were worshipped as gods, and temples were erected in their honour. The race of man impressed the Old Ones the most, for he seemed to be able to adapt to any climate, and small tribes quickly flourished in every corner of the world. Carvings upon the slan pyramid temples found deep within the jungles of Lustria, and the earliest songs of the elf bards tell of a great catastrophe that befell the noble Old Ones. A magical gateway, their portal to other distant worlds, collapsed, and they were forced to flee the fledgling world that they had created, lest they become stranded. Unable to help those races they had brought into the world, the Old Ones had little choice but to leave them to fend for themselves. Their parting gift was to create a race of giant warriors to protect the people of Albion. The collapse of the gateway tore a great hole in the fabric of heavens, allowing the forces of chaos to pour into the world. As the chaos mists enveloped the land, hordes of gibbering demons and all manner of foul beasts descended from the north in a bloody rampage. Many of the wise slan, the highest servants of the Old Ones, were the first to fall. A brave race, they tried to fight off the first wave of attackers, but were too few and too weak. They fled into hiding within the dense jungles of Lustria. Next, the Chaos Hordes turned their attentions to the High Elves, but the Old Ones had taught their children well. The High Elves constructed a great vortex at the centre of the heart of Ulthuan to contain and drive back the dark mists. The mages of the elves created this vortex by building a series of stone circles to absorb and diffuse the chaos energy. In their arrogance, the High Elves thought they were alone with the saviours of the world, but it was not so. By concentrating their attack on Ulthuan and leaving the island of Albion, the Chaos Hordes made a fatal flaw in their plan of conquest. The Truthsayers, or Druids as they were so called by the people of Albion, gathered together the giants and bade them also to construct a series of stone circles. With such immense strength at their disposal, the Truthsayers soon had a great many of these circles whose mystical properties would allow them to channel their spells and bind the forces of chaos to the north. In many ways, their mastery of this form of magic was better than the elves. Not only were they able to contain the chaos mists, but they were also able to use the stones to weave their own veil of fog around their island, protecting what they called the Ogham stones from danger. The elves would certainly have been overrun had the Druids of Albion not stemmed the flow, but the mist had shrouded the isle also blocked out the sun. Something in the nature of the stone circles attracted rain and storms, and over a short period of time the fertile land of Albion became a boggy region where few crops grew. In absorbing much of the chaos energy, the soil of Albion itself became tainted, and once fertile fields quickly changed into quagmires where a man could sink without a trace. The thick woods and forests became wild places where hawthorn and poisonous plants choked the life from the trees. Many feared to enter these once beautiful glades, and many of those who did were never seen again. Even the creatures of Albion would not be able to escape the mutating effects of chaos, and after only a short period of time the tribesfolk told tales of terrible monsters lurking in the darkest reaches, emerging at night to prey upon their unwary. It was a price the truth-sayers had little choice but to pay. If the dark forces of chaos were to be contained, then Albion had to remain hidden. The truth-sayers gave the task of guarding these stone circles to the giants who had constructed them. Said to have been formed from the earth itself, these giants were highly intelligent beings and knew the importance of their vigilance. For a while stability was created. The High Elves flourished as a race, learning much of the world through their contact with other primitive races such as dwarves and men. The truth-sayers of Albion, on the other hand, were isolated. They preferred the safety of their remote isle to the danger of the outside world and became introverted and reclusive. The giants also suffered from their imposed isolation. Centuries of inbreeding dulled their minds. When the danger of chaos vanished, they became bored and restless and resorted to mindless displays of strength in order to pass away the time. The tribes of men on the island also suffered a similar fate. With the disappearance of the Old Ones and a distinct lack of contact with the outside world, they degenerated into a race of warring tribesmen and primitive cave dwellers. During all this time, the truth-sayers continued to teach a chosen few of each successive generation their secret magic, waiting for the day when their masters would return. Each truth-sayer would be taught in minute detail the ritual ceremonies that were needed to maintain the mists that enveloped the island. They would each learn of the nature of the stones and the offerings that must be made so the magical power of these circles never waned. Over time, though, the ancient laws were slowly forgotten and, although the truth-sayers still practiced their art, it was but a shadow compared to the powers that used to be at their command. Some practices still survived, though, and on the night of each full moon, the truth-sayers would gather and perform ceremonies in order that the mystical energies remained bound to the stones. So it came to be that Albion remained a mysterious island. Many tales tell of raiding ships that had vanished into the mists never to be seen again. Occasionally the gossip in a tavern will turn to the tale of a friend who was shipwrecked on the isle and returned to tell stories of creatures that were half horse, half man, or of terrible one-eyed beasts that stalked the mists. Some even claimed to return with riches beyond a man's wildest dreams. Attilian explorer and conqueror Curious Gisa, the so-called first citizen of Remas, at the time reached the shores of the Misty Islands and tried to bring the native barbarians his view of the Tilian culture. He was unsuccessful, instead taking Hengus the Druid and the two biggest giants of Albion with him as hostages. Back in Tilia, he was assassinated, and the giants now roamed the now old world as mercenaries. No truth to these stories has ever been proven, and the rumours of Albion remain little more than fantastic tales told by drunks to any who would listen. But then a new legend spread across the land. Sailors talked of an island which had suddenly appeared to the far north. Huge white cliffs loomed out from the sea, but the sailors had also spied beaches where a small boat may possibly make a landing. It would seem that the mists had parted and the land lay open to explore. Every race across the world gathered its armies to seek the treasures of Albion and claim the island as their own.